Hello, and welcome to the last episode of Lana En Pure podcast, the book series. Just a little joke. All right, so if you guys don't know, I always say this before every episode that I do. A couple things. One, I'm new to the whole podcast thing. Normally, I'm like behind the scenes. I stay behind the scenes. I'm not really like, hi, how you doing? Hi, my name's Lana. I'm usually like, let me know what you need. See you later. But I decided to do with the last two chapters of the book to read them live versus what I normally do is every week I would just record it, audio it, and then upload it like to SoundCloud and Anchor and Spotify podcast. But I felt, since I got new equipment and stuff like that, I figured it would be a treat to, read it live. That would be kind of cool. Trying to dive into more of the technical aspects, more doing more things, networking, branding, and stuff like that. I just feel like people receive the message. If you like me as a visually, they can see it and hear it and feel it. That's the beauty about books, whether you're reading it or listening to it or hearing it. Somehow, some way, you get that point across. So, these episodes air every Sunday at 6 p.m. and 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. SoundCloud, Anchor, Spotify Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts for your leisure. So, what else should I mention before I start? You can find me on Instagram and all social media apps, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, all that, at Lana En Pure. One word, one name in the same picture, so you can find me on every platform. And as well as a published author, Tajiri, which is actually a middle name, and it's Swahili, and it means one who's destined to be wealthy. As well as a published author, I am also a DJ and a music producer, so I have a new project coming out soon next year. I know it's like tomorrow, but actually next year. So stay tuned for that, and you can find that on my Instagram page, on my business page, on En Pure's Corner. It has all my live sets and music, so you can feel free to listen to that and download that, as well as my new website is out that just launched this Wednesday. So that is at lepentertainment.com. Lower caps, no capitals, all one word, no spaces. lepentertainment.com, which is my record label company, which is Lana En Pure Entertainment. So you can find all my inquiries and all your questions will be answered there. All my services, the music and things like that on the website. So it's exciting. I have these little pop-up things happening, so it's exciting. Trying to end the year, which this has been a year strong. So I don't want to ramble too much. I tend to do that sometimes. So I'm going to read. This is like the closing chapter of the book. It's not as long as the other chapters and the other episodes, so this will be a little short. So I know it's on a Sunday. Normally I don't like working on a Sunday. Like that's Lord's Day, one day of rest. But I figured what better way to end your evening or start your evening with with chill podcasts, info, from your girl Anna. So let's get into that. And again, like I always say, when I wrote this book, this was never meant to, disrespect anybody or offend anybody. It was just my version of what I saw, neutral, you know. So again, this is more of like it's not really like a chapter, not like a chapter per se. It is in a way. It's like a closing chapter, and then I have like my take. So it's like a chapter and a half. So bear with me. So here we go. And again, like I mentioned in my last week's episode that I'm doing live, going forward, my episodes will be live. Just have to bear with me because I'm new to the whole podcast realm. I don't have my own studio. I do all this, with a computer and a dream. Really, it's just my laptop and my microphone in my room, as you see, with me and Pop and Snoop Dogg over here. So bear with me. All right. So this chapter is titled Forever Explaining, and it's like I said, It's not as long as the other chapters, but again, it's just some words I had to say, things like that. So here we go. Black folks have been trying to educate white people, schools, government, presidents, and their peers for a very long time now. Somehow, some way, it became our duty to have to explain why racism is bad and why saying the N-word is not a good move for you. Again, I don't like saying that word, so you'll never hear me say it unless I'm reading something. The word, that word sidebar, really needs to not be said by any group, to be honest. I have spoken to and came across Hispanics and white people who have 1% black in them and think they get the pass. No, you don't. None, and I really mean no one, can truly understand that word and its meaning unless two things happen. One, it is said to you with the ER at the end, not the A. And two, if you read history books and spoke to your elders and learned where and why that word was used so frequently during the 16th century. See, a lot of people think that they are woke and feel like if they have that first black friend, that they actually know the struggle. Or it is up to that one black friend to school them on black Ebonics. And for so long, at least that I've seen, that has happened. It has been that way. Why is it always up to us to have to tell you when to say this and when not to say that, or to school you on the latest new hip hop song? For so long, we are forever explaining something while being black, and yet in return, we still get disrespected. White folks don't want to accept the fact that we have style and soul and can dance on beat and have actually contributed to a lot to society. Why is there not a place of acceptance in your heart, more of a feeling of divide and conquer? So many times we lose sight, and once we see a glimpse of that being destroyed, your life is turned upside down. It seems to me that you only need to be educated when it comes to being socially aware on how to offend or not to offend a black person when it is politically beneficial to you. Ooh, my head is crazy. Can't find that. Okay, here we go. We are forever explaining the injustice that goes on in this world on a daily, constant basis. And if that isn't bad enough, y'all are killing us at the same time. The history books don't give African Americans any really credit outside of the back of the book, discussing the Civil War, which we won, Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and if you're lucky, Frederick Douglass. And if those 4 chapters, they discuss how slaves who just became free volunteered to go fight in the war. And if that wasn't bad enough, in the fights, they would use the young black men as shields on the field when they went into battle. So not only did we just get a moment of freedom, barely, now we are forced to fight your fight? Because essentially the Civil War was majority based on fighting for slavery. So now we are free for about 5 minutes. You bring us into your war and we get killed the minute we are out there. Because there is no training, these black men were not given the proper equipment to fight. When discussing Martin Luther King Jr. in the history books, at the back of the book, mind you, it discusses the same 3 things. One, his speech at the White House, I Have a Dream speech, which people try to use in every discussion, his walk across the bridge, and 3, his death on the balcony. Now, I may have not paid much attention in history class because it wasn't the truth and I wanted to learn the truth, but I definitely know he did more accomplishments than just those 2 things that are always listed. During Black History Month, by the way, on TV, they showcase the same 2 Martin Luther King Jr. movies yearly. Normally comes on either February 27th or February 28th. Now with Rosa Parks, there's maybe a page or 2 discussing her accomplishments. And like MLK Jr., there's about 2 of them. Now there are one, her boycott in the bus, and 2, her mugshot for her refusing to get off the bus. And maybe 2 or 3 sentences discussing her fight or fearfulness when it comes to disobeying the law. Again, I definitely know she had more legacies to leave than just a mugshot. Her standing up to not getting off the bus led to walks, marches, protests, and eventually, sort of, some equality for black folks while riding the bus, which is funny to me because when I used to ride the bus, I would see so many of us still sitting in the back of the bus. I'm like, but we have the chance to be up front or even in the middle. Why are we always stuck in the back? There is another point I like to make for a second. Black folks have died, been beaten, hung, and shot and killed on a daily basis during the 19th century. And you mean to tell me after all that they have done, the fighting, marching, working, and being slaves, I still see people, black folks, sitting in the back of the bus, like I said. I have even heard friends and colleagues of mine say they prefer sitting back there and away from people. Why? Our ancestors and people before us fought to have our rights equal to white people, especially when riding the bus. So that always boggled my mind when I saw a black man and woman purposely walking to the back of the bus and sitting there as if we didn't just have equal rights for years. Lastly, if you get the 13th to 15th edition of the American history books that they mention in your class, and you know what book I'm talking about, especially in college, that 14th edition book that they always want you to have, they mention Frederick Douglass in there briefly, discussing his not just one accomplishment. They may have put a picture up, and that's that. During the past year, during Black History Month of 2020, they didn't show any movies, and I searched. Nothing at all. Excuse me. And it was a leap year this year. I believe that now people or networks just put the reruns on to showcase the same movies just to save face. Where is originality and honor in Black history? We barely get a full month. It's only 28 days. And every year we are shortchanged into being squeezed into a month that is barely noticeable. The Super Bowl is in that month. Valentine's Day, as well as Mardi Gras in New Orleans. It is a very busy month, and I sincerely doubt that people will be sitting waiting for Black history movies to come on. Excuse me again. It is a ploy to just give us a little bit or just to be satisfied, just for the time being. There are a lot more people to be discussed, discovered, and honored in that month than just the same three. Now, there's nothing wrong with honoring these individuals, but what about Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner, Angela Davis, Huey Newton, and so on and so forth? Or even take it a step further and honor and discuss the musical influence that has been attributed to this country. African Americans have a long history of producing beautiful music that transcends throughout different peoples and souls. Mind you, the same artists like Sammy Davis Jr., B.B. King, The Temptations, who are my favorite, the Delphonics, even artists on Don Cornelius's Soul Train, page stuck, sorry about that, all were during the 1950s and 1980s. They all had to perform and sing for a white crowd because that was what sold. And they were right up there dancing and clapping and buying the records. Same goes with NWA. You all know which group I'm talking about. When they came out in 1984, by the way, as a very good documentary, NWA movie, very good. I saw it like 4 times. And I saw it, the first time I saw it was on my birthday, because it came out in August. And also, what else? The new edition, 3-part series, very good. I mean, very good. Oh, the Bobby Brown story. I'm getting sidetracked, but if you have a chance, since we're all home, definitely watch that. Okay, my bad. Same goes with the group NWA when it came out in 1984, and it was classified as a hardcore gangster rap. People bought their CDs and others hated it, but yet they still bought it. The list goes on what and who you can honor outside of them during the 28, sometimes 29 time span. Black folks have contributed a lot to this country in that month, which why we had to fight and scrap to get. Beyond me, means something to the African American community and should be treated as such. We are a group of individuals who are proud and honored to be a part of this country because of how much we know and how much we worked hard for it. The time and effort it took to get us here, and we refuse to go back. Forever explaining. What does that really mean? What is it that we must explain to you all the time? Well, it boils down to a few things: race, equality, and a time and place. There's a time and place for everything and everyone. Equality has been at the forefront of African Americans' dreams since as far back as I can remember. Because every time there comes a moment of gratitude, or even a time when you feel as if we can see the promised land, no pun intended, it is taken away from us. Freedom for Black folks comes in different forms and shapes, depending on how you look at it and who you can ask. Freedom, the word itself, in my opinion, means being free from one's darkest time. I'll say that again. Freedom, in my opinion, means being free from one's darkest time. Granted, the definition goes deeper than my opinion, but as a surface, to me, that is what it means. To be free from one's darkest time, in this case, it's slavery. But slavery still exists. Oh yes, it surely does. It's just not on a plantation. Speaking of a plantation, by the way, I'm not a fan of the exhibit down in New Orleans that they have. You can visit, tour a plantation house and shack. What in the world does that even mean? Why would I, any black person, want to go back in time and see how the world treated our ancestors? What's even worse is they have people dressed up in clothes during that time to imitate how it was. My grandmother said she visited it and it gave her the most surreal and eerie feeling. A feeling of sadness and grief overcame her. She said she could feel their presence in the room with her at the moment, and it made her feel sad as she felt and could see the hardships that they had to go through. I am a strong believer that you need to put yourself in anyone's shoes first before you really can judge and understand them, which is exactly what my grandmother did and said she believes everyone should experience an experience like that. I am all for visiting things firsthand, but something about going back to a plantation, seeing the big house and the slave shack to me is just too real. Slavery still does exist, like the devil. It is shaped in many different forms. Black folks are still living in oppression, whether they realize it or not. Taking point, COVID-19. African Americans are dying 5 times more than any other race. Why? Because there are a lot of other factors to play. We have a higher blood pressure, commonly found more infrequently in African Americans. The stress of yet another disease or virus that can kill us and is killing us is stressing us out. Let me say that again in case you missed it. The knowledge of knowing there is yet another disease virus that can and is killing us is stressing us out. Black folks have so many higher risks than a white person or any other race. We are also high risk of catching HIV/AIDS than anyone else. So we as an ethnic race, all black folks, have one, high blood pressure, two, HIV/AIDS, three, stress level is off the roof. The level of stress in a black household is severely higher than any other house. One parent household, none to watch and babysit the multiple kids, no health care that we can afford, no proper school system to send our kids that we can afford. Usually dad is not in the picture, so the children grow up not in a stable home. The statistic shows that a young man growing up in a single family home, meaning mentally functioning, is less lower than the average home with two parents. The struggle is different, the structure is harder. The guidance is different, and normally the money situation is completely non-existent. In a white household, if there is one parent and dad isn't in the picture, they can send money or have a trust fund. In a black home, the father is MIA, and you can never get him to pay child support because he doesn't have the means to pay it either. Most cases, he just leaves the family and never pays, or you have to take him to court and make him pay. The legal fees add up, and you are stuck paying that back as well for many years. That ties into when black teens, young men, get wrongfully accused of committing a crime, or even if they commit a crime, the punishment never fits. And their bail is announced statistically for black folks. It ranges from $2,000 to $100,000 bail bond. Now, a white person can have that money, bond, stock, trust fund, bankers, investors, daddy. A black family, 99.9 times out of 10, cannot, I'll say that again, cannot pay their bond in the necessary time. And these young men end up sitting and waiting in jail until a lawyer can help them or they can afford bail. Statistically showing in a black person home that takes 2 or 3 years, we end up having to go to the cash for bonds place and end up taking money out for bail. Excuse me. It never is enough because by the time we have saved enough money for the first amount, say it's $3,000, you come back and find out that they doubled it and now it's $6,000. So your son or nephew or father or husband has to stay there even longer because the time expired to pay the original amount. He can't afford to keep the original reward he had because those fees add up as well. So he gets legal aid. They charge even more, or in most cases, are inexperienced. So now you are just sitting and waiting and hoping that either your bail is paid or your trial is dismissed. But wait, here's the catch. The judge doesn't have any available appointments to see you until 5 months from now. So now you either have to come up with $6,000 for bail or sit and wait those 5 months. But who is it to say you will make it those 5 months in jail or even make it to the next night? While the terrifying reality that is being black in America, and the jail justice system breaks and tears us down, the stress factor in American is way higher than anyone else. For not only the reason I just listed, but because the system is built against and not for us, because it is uses our weaknesses, uneducated, no money, low people skills, against us. Once you're waiting on bail trial and days turn to weeks and which turns into months, which turns into years, you realize how far and how much the justice system has failed you. So now you add COVID-19 on top of that with the high blood pressure, the original stress, and the cases of HIV in the Black community. Just hearing those all in the same sentence means this deal with the Black community is troubling because it's been this way for years. Nothing has changed. Again, just like many of other things and systems that are built against the Black community, COVID-19 has killed close to, at the time when I wrote this, 160,000 people. And CDC predicts the total death by Christmas will be 350,000, which unfortunately we're almost there now. But here's the catch. If Americans, 90% of them, just take the time from now until December 1st to wear masks religiously, we can save about 70,000 deaths. Now, obviously, people aren't doing that because here we are. If you think about it, while that number may seem low, it is not low to the families that are being saved. This virus is no joke, and a lot of people have died unnecessarily. If the country shut down altogether at the same time back in March, I believe things would have been a little bit different. Your president, then, has given about a million different mixed signals on how to address the virus, but the bottom line is this: it's deadly. The sooner more people realize this, maybe even though it's 7 months later, we can put our arms around this virus and save more lives than ever have been. This is serious and should be looked at as a nationwide thing, not just state to state. We are forever explaining. I'm tired of having to explain everything to everyone on a daily basis. I'm tired of seeing the brothers and sisters over and over again being dead and choked out in the streets. It is a constant thing. How many more Black young men, children have to die before something changes? I don't know if I can do another march or another protest or voice how I feel we feel yet again. Because clearly in the past 11 years since Oscar Grant was murdered, y'all seem to not get it. Our lives do matter, and when we say Black Lives Matter, we are not saying that not all lives matter. We are just saying for what we are discussing here that our lives are not taken as seriously and haven't been since Emmett Till. Haven't been since Nat Turner was hung and killed. Haven't been since MLK was shot in his hotel room. Haven't been since those 4 little girls were bombed again going to church on Sunday service. Our lives haven't mattered since Bubba Wallace, the only African American NASCAR driver, found a noose hanging in his parking garage. People tried to tell him it was a rope that was there before. Our lives haven't mattered since we were hosed down, had dogs attack us, hung from trees, hunted and raped in the night like cattle, called coons, niggers, monkeys, apes, could only drink out of a colored, dirty water fountain, got beaten with billy clubs at 17 years old, walking across the beach in Selma, got food and yelled at while just trying to have lunch with my friends at Woolworths. Our lives haven't mattered since segregation in the 1950s when a young girl was just trying to get an education in Little Rock, Arkansas, and she was yelled and screamed at. The list goes on and on for another 6,000 pages, but the fact remains our voices are still unheard. So, take a little break. That was chapter 14, and that was titled Forever Explaining. Again, when I mentioned before, maybe 4 chapters ago, some of the chapters that I discussed, some of the chapters that I talk about do kind of get, a little heated. But it really is not to be with an attitude or not to be whatever. It's just to get my point across so you guys can understand, my thought process, what I was thinking when I wrote it, and so on and so forth. Because a lot of times people, when they get passionate about a book or passionate about a chapter or topic, you can kind of feel it, in the book. So hopefully that kind of came across with what I was saying. But I hope you guys enjoyed the journey with me. I enjoyed reading from my book. I think this might be the second time I've read it fully, other than when I first read it. But reading it out loud, having people listening to it, people commenting on it and stuff like that is different for me. I've never, really had that before. I feel like it's like a new thing. It's exciting, to have people want to buy your book and listen to it and feel like, you have something to say, your opinion, matters. So it's a good feeling. But I'm going to read the, closing chapter of the book. Hopefully you guys will stay tuned for that. It's just going to be a little bit longer. It's about a page or two. It's not long. I know usually I make these like under 25 minutes, so this probably will go to like half an hour tops. I know it is a Sunday. I know you guys probably don't want to be caught up with reading. I know when I was in school getting my degrees, I'm like, I don't want to read this on a Sunday. And teachers would always give you um, homework to do over the weekend or homework to do during the holidays, like Thanksgiving weekend. I'm like, but I only have one day off. So take a swig real quick of my Gatorade. I know I was coughing throughout the podcast, so excuse me for that. All right, so let's just read. Feels weird, like closing the book, essentially. Okay, here we go. And again, my episodes, previous episodes, chapters, and everything already up on SoundCloud, can't talk to me, excuse me, SoundCloud, Anchor, Spotify Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. So you can listen to them, download them for free in the book. The paperback is $12, and the Kindle ebook is about $4. So you can download that too as well. Or pay for it and download it. All right, so epilogue. My take on America. My take on America is this. Knock, knock. Wake up. Bottom line is we need to realize that we are not going to get any further unless someone or something changes. By someone, I mean white people. Yes, I am being blunt because racism will not change until white folks look at systematic racism head on. No more being up to us to educate and correct and be accommodating to their needs and feelings. We had to do that for 401 plus years, and we're still doing it now. Now, enough is enough. Something has to change. Now, I'm not one to put all the pressure on a person to go through because that isn't fair to ask of anybody or anyone. But with this, oh yes, this has to start and be all on you to begin the process. The process of healing the wounds that have been festering in African American community for so long. But that, I mean, it takes one person to start and address that there is actually racism into it instead of trying to ignore it like the president, well, former president. There is racism because there is not any, because if there was not any racism, we wouldn't have had a colored and non-colored water fountain back in school buildings and sittings in the back of buses. So you can't possibly believe the notion that racism doesn't exist because it does, because of those things has happened. Unless you are a believer that all of this was justified, as Stephen Spencer has reiterated for many, many years, and that slavery has made blacks happier and this country better off. If you don't know who he is, don't waste your time looking him up. You have to stand up for something or you will fall for anything. Malcolm X said it best, and it's one of my favorite quotes. I do believe that there isn't, I do believe that isn't where racism began. I do believe it started years, decades, centuries before then, because it didn't just pop up in America in the 1940s. It was here many, many years before that. What are you going to do to set you apart from everyone else? Are you a sheep or are you a wolf? Are you going to follow the rest of the small-minded individuals and just succumb to the injustice that is this nation? No. Not all of America is racist, and not all of Americans feel this way. But ignoring it or saying it doesn't exist just can't happen anymore. Like I said earlier, words have power. If you say things long and affirmative enough, people start to believe that lies are actually true. It isn't true and can't go on anymore because all we are doing is going backwards, not forward. To go backwards in life means that all the trials and tribulations that our ancestors had to overcome was in vain. That all the deaths and murders and beatings and rapes and hangings were just for show. They have to mean more than that. They have to have a purpose. Everything has to have a purpose and point to happen or not happen for us to go through and still go through slavery for another 401 plus years and still have nothing to show for it is insane. And you can't be okay with it. I know I'm not. This is why I decided to write this book, because I was exhausted from seeing the same lies over and over and over again. Taught in school books, phone conversations, and even in forums, but it wasn't the full truth that bothered me. This is how I feel each chapter and point I touch should have played out. There is still more work to be done, and it is up to white folks to educate the young, the youth on truth, not what you were taught. Now, I'm not saying forget our values and morals, but I am saying there are assumptions, there are lies, but there can only be one truth. A say that again. There are assumptions, there are lies, but there will only be one truth. That truth must be saving Black lives, erasing the systematic fairy tale of believing that evil doesn't exist because it does. Just tell the truth. Dun, dun. That is the end of my book. And then like the last page or so, I have like a thank you page and all the other, fun cute stuff, thanking God and family and stuff like that, all that jazz. So okay, a little over half an hour, but I promise. But I hope you guys enjoyed this journey that have been on with this book. Even rereading it still gives me chills. I remember each chapter as I was writing it, as I'm reading it. So it's really exciting to, go through the process of, I guess in a way, reliving the writing and the structure and the creation of the book. So I'm really excited about that. But like I said, I don't want to make this too long. Tune in every Sunday at 6 o'clock, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Excuse me, not Central Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time for the podcast that will be live for SoundCloud and Anchor and Apple Podcasts and Spotify Podcasts. It will be the audio. But to see the visual, as I'll do, that will be up on YouTube and Instagram as well every Sunday. And I know it is after 6:30 because again, this is my first time doing it live, so it took me a little bit longer than usual. But going forward, it will be, literally every Sunday at 6:30. So I just want to say that. So I don't want to keep you guys too long. You guys have been great listening, going through my journey. I'm looking at the reviews and hearing your comments and concerns. So I appreciate it. It's nice to know that you guys are rocking with me. Some of the stuff, some of the chapters that I did touch, it was a little touch and go. But again, it's all out of love, never to, disrespect anybody. So, as I always say, I hope you guys have a blessed Sunday and have a blessed week. And as I always say, do something today that you didn't do the day before and never stop creating, okay? Have a great, great evening and stay tuned.